Ladies, gentlemen, and anybody else watching, welcome one and all to tonight's episode of the Undercovers cast. I am Connor here with the co-hosts Ben and Paul. And boy, do we have a very interesting game to talk about tonight, along with a quite fair bit of other topics. But I know everybody wants to know about the Bills and our victory against the Cardinals. But first and foremost, let's jump into our quick takes. Let's just not even banter with anything else. Let's just get right into the show. Paul, I believe your first take topic was, for me actually, does the
Mhm.
NFL need more international games? And I am going to be as quick, blunt, and precise as possible with this answer. No. As a matter of fact, they need less. Put all the games back in the United States and stop having the teams travel to countries that could honestly care less about football. Now, I know that the United Kingdom's got a big fan base. Brazil has a big Dolphins fan base. But other than that, why are we doing this? That's just my opinion. I feel like we should keep the sport nationally based because that's where it started and that's where it should stay. And there's not really much more I have to say on it other than I just want to jump right into the next
Well,
quick take because
let
this
me
one's
just
even better.
quickly agree with you. I mean, it
Good.
is American football after all, and as a salty FSU fan, no more international games ever for any football team.
Thank you.
And you can just see, like, I mean, for the Bills last year, we lost Daquan Jones and Matt Milano on the awful playing surface in London. Packers fans, I mean, I know it really wasn't. It may have not really been due to the playing surface why Love got injured, being
Mhm.
just because he got sandwiched between two players. But I mean, at the end of the day, if they weren't playing that game in Brazil on a Friday night, that injury never happens. Now, who
Mhm.
knows? Maybe he gets injured if they play that game on a Sunday. But I mean, you're at least ruling out a couple really bad injuries that we've seen as of late. And honestly, it's just really not great football. Like we saw the playing surface last year, in the Bills Jaguars game in London was awful. We saw the playing surface on Friday night in Brazil was terrible as well. Like if it, the thing is, if we're sending, teams over there, we should be, trying to show our best to grow the NFL fan base and not
Mhm.
showing a crap product. So it's
Mhm.
kind of a bad look on the NFL anyways that there's, playing on these awful playing surfaces and teams aren't really ready for the games due to
Mhm.
jet lag or on, other circumstances. But that leads into our next topic with Love
Jordan
out at
Love.
least 3 weeks. Should the Packers grab a quarterback or stick with Malik Willis? Well, I think they should grab a quarterback either way because if you look at their other
Mhm.
options, you have Michael Pratt, who was a 7th-round pick this year, Sean Clifford, who was a draft pick last year, but they obviously didn't think too highly of either Pratt or Clifford just to be a backup to begin with. I mean, they
Mhm.
traded for Malik Willis, who we've all seen, and he couldn't make it out of Tennessee to beat out Mason Rudolph for the second string. And after what we saw yesterday, I get it was just week 1 from Will Levis. That's really
Mhm.
not a good indictment on Malik Willis. So if I'm a Green Bay fan, I don't really have a ton of confidence um, with Malik Willis. I get it. You have weapons. The run game should be better with Josh Jacobs, but now you'll see teams starting to stack the box. But I know Willis can kind of run the ball. But I mean, there were reports that they reached out to Tannehill, and if I'm Green Bay, I think even Tannehill with a limited playbook could still give you
Mhm.
better football and give you a better opportunity to win games than Malik Willis
Mhm.
at all. And it's
Absolutely.
not like Malik Willis has been in the building a while anyways to really have a huge, understanding of the playbook. They just got him at the end of August, so may as well go out and grab Tannehill or someone like that. Shoot, even trade for Jameis. I mean, if the Browns aren't going to
No.
play Jameis,
No.
I
why
was
not?
I have this maybe weird slash hot take with the quarterback room in Green Bay. With
What's that?
Pittsburgh with Pittsburgh having two quarterbacks with Wilson and Fields, when Wilson comes back and Fields is playing, say
Nah,
Fields is
I don't
playing decently well,
Mhm.
you
that
maybe
doesn't
go out
really
and
make
grab
sense.
Fields for a few games.
Nah, it's week
Nah,
one.
that doesn't.
Week one
Yeah,
is
I'd
weird.
agree. Well, and here's the thing too. That's Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh definitely traded for Fields for a reason, and that
Mhm.
was they're thinking long term, not to ship him off to Green Bay to get a slightly better draft pick out of him. And we know Green Bay, you know, doesn't need him for the long term. So they're not really too interested in giving up draft capital for a quarterback. Number
Mhm.
two is how much better, honestly, is Fields really than Malik Willis? Like, I
Yes.
mean, the other day against Atlanta, six scoring drives were all field goals, and a lot of that was because of great field position, courtesy of TJ Watt and Minka
Yep.
Fitzpatrick. So if you look at field passing chart, they were all checkdowns. Like, I mean, Fields is not a good quarterback. Now Caleb Williams looked kind of rough in his rookie debut. Now that's a different conversation for another day. But
Yep.
let's get on to our trivia so we can get into this Bills game.
Oh yeah, we got a
Before the
lot
Monday
to
Night
talk
Football
about.
starts.
Mhm.
So the Seattle Seahawks had two safeties. They
Yes.
they they gave up two safeties, which was beat the Denver's defense, which is the 19th. Denver is now the 19th team to have two safeties in one game.
Mhm.
Which
What about
team
in one
had
half?
three?
Well,
Yeah, has it ever
how many
happened in one
times
half?
how many times has it happened in one half? That's my question.
I would have to do a little bit more research in that.
I
And
mean,
it was
if it happened 3 times in a game, it would have mathematically it has to happen it
Mhm.
has to
at least
happen
in
at
one
least
half.
once and 2 times 1 half. That
Exactly.
is so when did it 3 times happen? Just so I can get a good guess. Let's get a hint.
1984.
Oh,
Oh,
okay. So still
84?
kind of in semi-modern history.
All right. I
AFC
think I know.
team?
I think I
AFC
know.
team?
I'm gonna let Ben answer first, but I'm pretty sure I know.
Let me get a
NFC.
NFC. I'd say probably the Bears.
Your guess, Connor?
Los
That's a
Angeles
good
Rams, back when it was
ooh,
technically not even. No, I think back then it was still
that's
Los
like
Angeles
no,
Rams.
it was because that was before they moved to St. Louis, which would have been in
Yeah,
the early 90s.
yeah,
That's a
I
good
believe.
guess too.
Yeah,
They had
I
a
think it.
great defensive line.
Yep, I think
Was
it was the
Deacon
Rams.
Jones on the team there, I think. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great guess as well.
Hmm.
It's probably
Who's right,
neither,
Paul?
right?
It's the Los Angeles Rams.
Oh, wow,
September
Connor.
30th,
Great guess.
1984
Wow.
in a 33-12 blowout win against the Giants.
Okay, wow.
Oh, it
Okay.
was the Giants. I didn't think it was the Giants, but I knew it had to have
It
been
was
the
the
Rams.
Rams. The Rams had 3 against the Giants in a win on September 30th, 1984.
Now imagine if fantasy football had existed back then. How many points the Rams defense would have put up that day?
That would have been a
Yeah, I'm.
crazy game.
Hey, now
But
as a Christian McCaffrey fantasy owner, I don't want to talk about fantasy right now. I'm
ooh,
absolutely
yeah.
absolutely
We'll,
screwed in one league
we'll talk
tonight.
about that a little bit later, but let's start off with this Bills game. Um,
Absolutely, there's a lot to
and
say.
I mean, first Monday of the season, or
First
first
victory
post.
Monday.
Yes, first football Monday of the season, first victory Monday of the season. So the Bills
Yeah,
start off 1-0.
plenty of
I
more to
mean, it
come.
wasn't pretty the entire time, but they took care of business. The second half, Arizona just had 80 yards of total offense. They actually had more yards on special teams, which came
Mhm.
courtesy of that return by was it DJ Dallas, I believe.
So
Yes.
yes, DJ
So
Dallas.
yes, DJ Dallas had the great return, and a questionable kick from Tyler Bass, but maybe we'll talk about the special teams later on.
Definitely.
But overall, biggest week one takeaway to me, and I think this is something we kind of all knew, but it carried over from last season. Joe Brady said it in the offseason that at the end of the day, this is still the Josh Allen offense. And it
Hmm.
was yesterday, the Josh Allen experience when The Bills needed a play. Josh Allen made it. 4th down, 3rd and long in the red zone. I mean, there's really only 2 or 3 plays from the whole game where you could say he missed a play or, it was a mistake. Number 1 was the fumble, which he had Curtis Samuel wide open. And I mean, that was a critical mistake early on, but after that, it was pretty seamless. I mean, he missed MVS deep for a touchdown, but the next drive they ended up scoring after, Greg Rousseau had that strip sack on Von Miller. But yeah, for me, my biggest takeaway, it was the Josh Allen experience in totality for that game. And I mean,
Absolutely.
yes, there were some mistakes, but there's mostly great play with some really freak plays that he'll pull off time to time, which he had plenty of them yesterday in the opening game. So that's my biggest takeaway. I'd like to hear what your thoughts are on the game, Connor and Paul.
All right. So I'll go ahead and go first with mine because I do have some very important things to say regarding this game. And first and foremost is this is why we drafted Keon Coleman. Go back and look at his catch. Xavier Worthy is not making that catch. He's not. I'm sorry, he's not. We drafted Keon Coleman for his contested catch ability. And you see that insane catch he pulls off to get the Bills closer to the end zone. That's why we drafted Keon Coleman. Straight up. I just wanted to put that to rest because it was just irritating me on Thursday to see everybody in the Mafia complaining that we missed out on Xavier Worthy. I'm like, he went to an offense that was going to benefit his skill set. Keon Coleman went to the offense that was mostly going to benefit his skill set. The two switched are not going to be the same player because the schemes are so different, because the quarterbacks are so different. So at the end of the day, Keon Coleman was outstanding. But one thing that I also really want to say is kudos to obviously kudos to Josh Allen, but kudos to Bobby Babich for adjusting the defensive game plan like that. You saw what the Cardinals did in the beginning, and that was stuff James Conner down the defensive line's throats and try to make sure that Kyler Murray really didn't have much of a passing attack, didn't really have to throw the ball much just because of how he could sometimes be a little inaccurate. And what happened was absolutely a defensive masterclass, especially in the second half from Bobby Babich. They did not get, I think, more than 70 yards total in the second half, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it was like 80 yards of offense.
Yeah, 80 yards of offense in total in the second half. And that was after losing Taron Johnson. And
I mean,
I don't want to talk about that.
I mean, honestly, though, the entire game was played without Taron because he got injured basically that very first offensive play for Arizona. But let's hear what your takeaway is, Paul.
Oh yeah, when Paul is done,
really
I got
quick
one
on
more
the Bills
thing to add
defense.
on.
I have a stat on the Bills defense here. On 36 offensive snaps for the Arizona Cardinals in the first half, they had 190 yards, and Kyler Murray ran the football 4 times. In the second half, in 24 defensive snaps, offensive snaps for the Cardinals, they had 80 yards, and Kyler Murray only ran once. So Bobby Babich at halftime just completely flipped the switch on how he was calling defense, and it worked really well. Well, my biggest takeaway from this game is the fight that the Bills had. It continues to burn into this season. The Bills now hold the record for the most consecutive games that without losing by more
regular
than
season
points.
Games.
Regular season
games.
Yes.
There is a big caveat because if you don't include that, people will always bring up that Cincinnati playoff game. But yes, it is regular season. Connor, what's your last quick thought, because we got to go to our
Okay.
players of the game.
Yeah, we do need to move it on, but yes, listen. So, I saw a stat earlier today. Credit Patrick Moran of Talking Buffalo for this tweet. Bills starting corners Christian Benford and Rasul Douglas were targeted 3 times combined in the
Wow,
entire game. Gave up
that's
2
crazy.
catches for 4 yards. Arizona didn't even attempt to go after the Bills starting corners.
It's now it'll be interesting to see what the game plan is for Miami on Thursday. If they try to move Hill or Waddle around to try to attack Ingram or Lewis. But moving on to standout players of the game. Now Josh Allen is obviously too obvious, and he had a fantastic game. But you can actually make an argument that there's another player who is almost more impactful, and he's a player who is still waiting to get his money. But I mean, he's
I know
about
where
to
this
get
is going.
paid if he keeps going that way, and that is Greg
Greg
Rousseau.
Rousseau.
How
Yep.
about that performance yesterday?
Mm.
3 sacks, a forced fumble. He was all over the field.
Pretty sure it
We
was all in
saw it.
one half too.
Yeah, we saw it in the I think
Was it all in one half?
no,
I thought
because
it
the
was.
strip was in the second half. The
Oh,
strip
okay,
was in the
right.
second half.
I thought it was. I don't know why I thought it was all in one
You're
half.
thinking about the Pittsburgh preseason game where he just wrecked, and I mean, he gave us a sneak peek of what was to come in that preseason game versus Broderick Jones, and I mean, I'll be interested. That's obviously going to be. We'll definitely talk more about the Miami game tomorrow once we do a preview on that. But that's obviously going to be a big storyline. Is if he could carry that over, because Miami, their pass protection looked pretty good against Jacksonville the other day. But that is my player of the game is Rousseau. Connor, let's hear yours.
Yeah, I honestly would have also said Greg Rousseau, but I want to actually give you another one that I think is you wouldn't think so, but I actually just have to say it. And I know he
Okay.
didn't see much, but it's Dalton Kincaid. And before you lose it, let me explain. So you could
Interesting.
see it in the entire game. The Cardinals defense was actually trying to contain Dalton Kincaid. And what he was doing was actually allowing more of the offense to kind of flow. So you'd give the ball to James Cook, he'd get extra blocking, and you on all of the deeper passing routes, you okay, they're going to try to go to Kincaid and they're going to try to go to Kincaid often. So they just kept doubling up Kincaid. That just allowed other receivers like Shakir to get free. It allowed on to get free multiple times. And it just made it to where the offense was a whole lot more unpredictable because you didn't know what to expect.
Right.
So, in a way, I actually really like. I know Dalton Kincaid didn't put up much on the stat sheet, but it's another one of those. If you didn't watch the game, you really didn't see how much of an impact Kincaid had on the offense in general. But if you only watched the stats instead of watching the games, like 90% of people on Twitter do, then you didn't really see what happened. You would have think Kincaid had a horrible game when in reality he didn't. He did a lot more than what the sheet says. Like you have to watch the game, and he was very impressive, just
Okay.
blocking and creating routes. But that was who I would have thought of other than Rousseau, and obviously not saying, Josh Allen. I feel like Josh Allen's a gimme answer. And
So
I
let's
didn't want to
hear
give a gimme answer.
let's hear yours, Paul.
Josh Allen's definitely the gimme answer. James Cook could also be a gimme answer. Greg Rousseau is probably a gimme answer. I'm going to go on the defensive side of the ball here. And Cam Lewis played really,
Oh, yes.
really,
He
really
did.
well
Yes.
inside with Taron Johnson going down on that first drive. Cam Lewis was set to beat the dime cornerback for the rest of the game. And then he comes in with very little prep to play the nickel role for Taron Johnson. And he did really, really well. And he held the Bills defense, Bills secondary with glue because, like you alluded to, Connor, they didn't really go after Douglas or Benford. With Cam Lewis not getting much prep, he was the main guy that they were targeting. And he stood his ground, and he stood his ground very, very well.
Yeah, I thought Lewis was very impressive, even in the run game too. He was in the backfield and had a couple nice plays on on Connor. And speaking of Kincaid, I know Connor. It doesn't seem like you're concerned with the lack of
Nope.
Dalton Kincaid in the offensive game plan.
Nope.
Um, I'll get
He'll
your
be
take
back.
in a minute, but I think this is also just going to be kind of how the Bills' offense functions. Like, I don't think there's ever really going to be a clear alpha, even when they score 30 plus like they did the other day. I think Josh is just going to spread the ball around because, as Brady says, everyone eats,
Everyone eats.
and it was a pretty, even target distribution. And I think that's what the Bills' offense would like to be. You know, that's like the type of identity. Now there will be games where Josh obviously throws it, just given the situations or he has to, but it didn't really dictate it yesterday. So I don't think you got to just force feed someone targets just to get them fantasy points, just to
Mhm.
get them numbers or whatever. I think
I
versus
know where you're going.
Miami, I think you can expect a much bigger game from Dalton Kincaid. Just because I think Miami's linebackers are weaker, but I'm not
Mhm.
concerned now if it's week 5 or week 6 and Kincaid literally has one catch every game, then it's a different conversation. But I'm not gonna overreact because weird stuff
Yeah,
happens week 1.
it does. I really don't think we have any reason to be concerned whatsoever. And again, it's like I said, I really felt like the Cardinals did a great job in taking Kincaid away from the offense, but Kincaid took that and he started being a whole lot more productive via other means, blocking, creating holes for James Cook to run, creating targets for more target opportunities for Khalil Shakir, Curtis Samuel, Keon, the entire rest of the list. And then Dawson Knox, obviously, when no one expected Knox, there was Knox because everybody
Yeah,
was
I
looking
mean
at
he made a big
Kincaid
play.
like, yep. And because everybody was thinking about Kincaid, thinking Kincaid
Yeah,
is going to be the star here. And to your Miami bit, Ben, I actually kind of agree. I really don't think that they're going to be able to contain Kincaid as well as the Cardinals did because Jalen Phillips is still not completely himself, I would think, after, having a torn Achilles.
yep.
And I just don't really know what to expect out of the rest of their D. I know they had a lot of good
Calais
moments
Campbell
against
played well.
Jacksonville, but you know, it's just what do you know? Like anything can happen, especially when it comes to divisional games. They are always a toss up because everybody goes an extra
For
mile,
sure,
everybody
for
plays a
sure.
little harder, and I'm still really not concerned because it is Miami. We kind of seem to own them, but
What
it's something to
what are
watch.
your thoughts on Kincaid's usage, Paul?
Yeah, let's hear it.
You know,
Co-
having 2 targets for 1 catch, in week 1, it's not the biggest of deals, but I would love to see Kincaid, mixed in just a little bit more. But really just to go on to to allude to what you guys were talking about with everyone eats in a balanced offense, Josh Allen only threw it 23 times. So it's only a certain amount of people are going to get, a certain amount of targets, and it's going to just be distributed differently. 10 receivers had 10 receivers, 10 different receivers had a target in this game, and 9 of them caught the football. And you look
Yep.
at back at week 1 last year, that was 8. There was 8 different receivers that had a target in that game, and the most targets in that game was Stephon Diggs, who had 13. You know, Bills the Bills' leading receiver in this game was Keon Coleman. Like
Big dubs.
he was the foresight of the Bills offense in week 1. He had the most targets, I believe he had the most catch, and I believe he had the most receiving yards out of all the receivers in this game. So having Kincaid maybe not getting as many yards isn't too big of a deal just yet because it opens up the offense for Shakir and opens the offense for Keon Coleman, as we alluded to, as me and you, Connor, and a few Connors takes ago, we were talking about this. Is that with 5 wide receivers, does it open up the ability for Keon Coleman to do more? And I think that's yes.
Hmm.
Yes, we would love to see
Let me cook.
Dalton Kincaid have a monster game every single
He will.
week, but 4 or 5 catches, 30, 50 yards, that works because you give the ball to everybody else, and it makes a more balanced and a more efficient offense, as you
Yep.
saw in the second half.
Yep. And
Now,
to
what
your
do you
point,
guys?
Paul,
Oh, go
to your
ahead.
point, to your point, Paul, you were correct. Keon Coleman led all receivers in yards at 51 yards. 4 receptions,
And
51
receptions too, I
yards.
believe.
Yes, he did. He had 4 compared to next highest was Shakir and Cook. Shakir had 3 receptions for 42 yards and a touchdown. James Cook had 3 receptions for 32 yards, no touchdowns. So at the end of the day, yes, you
So
are going to, that's exactly what I alluded to. 5 receivers, you are going to load up for Keon and you are going to give him the ability to succeed in this offense. Go ahead, Ben.
you're good. So what are your guys' thoughts on that decision to kick the field goal on 4th and 3 instead of, putting it in Josh's hands? Now, we did see, obviously, against Kansas City in the playoffs. Now, the Bills were losing in that scenario. In this scenario, they were winning. But, I mean, at the time yesterday, I will say I was saying put the ball in Josh's hands. Just I don't trust Bass, especially after training camp in the preseason. But
Don't
McDermott,
worry.
you could tell, trusted his defense, and it almost burned him at the end because Arizona started to drive down and Murray missed a couple of big plays on that final drive, but the defense was able to get out of it at the end of the day. And to me, that just shows that McDermott trusts in his defense. But that being said, if you have Josh Allen and it's under 5 yards, I think you always want to go for it. I mean, especially because you could have just ended the game with a first down and not even had to put your defense on the field in that situation. So I'm always the type to go for it, but I don't know how you guys feel about that decision. But I would have. I mean, I get why McDermott didn't, but I would have went for it myself.
Remember who we
And you're also
have.
kicking into the wind.
Exactly.
That wasn't even an easy kick. We
You're right.
all offseason we talked about Tyler Bass's struggles. I mean,
I
he was
mean, we're
kicking
probably,
into
let's
the
be
wind.
real, we're probably gonna, it's gonna be a talking point at some season. I mean, actually, it's on our, it's on our docket for the next topic about the kick return touchdown. So we're gonna talk about Bass at some point. Either way, hint, in like 2 minutes or so. But yeah,
Yeah.
if you have Josh Allen, I would put it in his hands rather than Bass's feet. And I mean, I agree, Connor. Remember who we have. And honestly, let's get to that topic. I mean, the Bills yesterday on defense in the second half really allowed nothing besides that kickoff return touchdown. And that was at a point where the Bills were kind of in cruise mode and Arizona was kind of just, they really had nothing going for them. And that was a situation where they almost were able to, I mean, they did get back in the game, but they were able to snatch a victory from the jaws of defeat. And we almost saw another miracle win for the Cardinals against us and an epic loss for the Bills. And to me, in that kick, the question is, do you blame Bass or the kicking staff? But I think you have to blame Bass because he kicked it short, and then later on, he kicked it out of bounds on the very next kick, or maybe it was 2 kicks later, whatever kick it was, the final kick before Arizona's last drive on offense. But I'm a little concerned with Tyler Bass on kickoffs with this new rule, and we're 1 game into the season. Now it will be interesting. Maybe they try. I don't know if Martin has any kickoff experience, but I know some kickers, have been kickoff specialists at a time. I mean, there was a time in Bill's history. I don't know if you remember, Paul. It might be, it might have been a couple years before you really got into the Bills football, but we actually rostered a kickoff specialist for an entire season, and all he literally did was kickoffs.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Is that not Brandon Codrington right now?
No,
Or whatever his first name
kickoff
is?
specialist, not kick returner.
Oh, derp. All righty then. That's understandable. Yep. Don't
Yep,
don't listen
yep,
to me.
yeah.
I'm
No, the
stupid.
topic at hand is that kick return touchdown for Arizona, whether it was the coaching or Bass. But I mean, Bass kicked it short. There was no question about it. I mean,
Yeah.
all you have to do, kick it out of the end zone, out of the landing zone. But Bass, I don't even know if he has the leg to do that. And he tried at
I
the end
mean,
and he kicked it out of bounds. Like in a big game, like we all remember 13 seconds, right? If there's
Blech.
another critical game where the Bills take a lead and they give up a special teams mistake, the other team could flip the field quickly to tie or win a game late. And with the Bills special teams right now, I think that has to be one of your biggest concerns throughout the season through week 1.
I think this is definitely a very interesting topic because the kick, that DJ Dallas caught that didn't go through the end zone, that should be on Bass. But after
It
that,
is on Bass. It was a low
or-
kick.
right, it was a low kick, but then after that, the special teams unit should be ready to tackle and
No, it
stop
should be. I
DJ
mean, we
Dallas.
all knew the Bills special teams unit was questionable after
Right,
they
and so
put
that would
12 men on the
that would
field
fall onto
after a
the
timeout last season to lose them a game on Monday Night Football. Like we
right.
all
Then
knew the Bills
that
special
means it
teams
would fall
unit
onto the
was
coaching
truly
staff after.
special.
So it's
Mhm.
like it's a full special teams breakdown. So it starts
Well,
with
Matthew
Bass.
Smiley doesn't deserve a job. Tyler
We all
Bass
know that.
isn't clutch, and I mean he can't kick it through the end zone. I mean that could
I mean,
be
and then there's Sam Martin.
a
It's
major
just
issue.
it's
Well,
it's
yeah, Martin too is a whole nother
special teams isn't
topic.
it?
Yeah. But as we wrap up the week 1 talk, there were a couple injuries. Obviously, we talked about Johnson
Don't say it.
earlier. He hurt his arm,
He
and
said it.
Coach McDermott already ruled him out for Thursday's game against
Stop triggering
Jacksonville.
me.
Miami. I almost said Jacksonville because that's who Miami played and beat. But Taron Johnson is out. Josh Allen also had an injury, but he is cleared to practice and play
Good to
per Coach
go.
McDermott.
At
Now
least that's something
obviously
to smile about.
this is going to impact the game no matter what, because Johnson is just such an elite player overall with his ability to make big tackles for losses or defend passes and coverage. Just his recognition ability to react and diagnose plays. So that's going to be a critical loss. And depending on how McDaniel dials things up for Devon Achan or Tyreek Hill and Waddle, I mean, he could move some guys around to try to take advantage of Cam Lewis. Now, the safeties, I actually thought the Bills' safeties, we didn't really talk about it that much earlier, but I thought the safeties played their jobs and were in position and didn't get beat. And that's really what you want from your safeties. They showed the athleticism, and we already talked about Douglas and Benford. So, I mean, if Douglas and Benford can play like they did on Sunday, I mean, we should be able to withstand Tyreek and Waddle. It's just going to be interesting to see how McDaniel adjusts to no Taron Johnson.
I'm not really that worried, and you know why? I still think that even without Taron in the backfield, as much as it hurts me to actually say that, you got to remember that their offensive line is not the best. As a matter of fact, it is definitely one of the worst. And with how Rousseau performed yesterday and how Vaughn performed yesterday, I feel like we're going to eat.
I mean, Ed, even from what I heard,
Oh, Ed
there were
Oliver. Oh, he was
there were
being double and triple
plays.
teamed the whole
Yes,
time.
and he also was getting held, and they weren't really calling it.
Mhm.
So Ed Oliver
Yep.
was able to make an impact without it
Oh,
showing
yeah.
up on the stat sheet.
Yep. Just like a
And
kid.
that's really the key to getting to two. I mean, we remember last year's early season game against Miami. That game was really won by a couple players, and it started with Ed Oliver and Daquan
Mhm.
Jones just terrorizing Liam Eichenberg all game, and I think that's probably to continue. I mean, we did see Daquan make a couple big plays in his return yesterday.
Yep.
Yes, no Milano. And I will say it was rough at times for Williams, but I think too for Williams, he kind of had the tough task of A, being the help on Marvin Harrison Jr., and B, being the spy on Kyler Murray as well. So sometimes he just kind of really was kind of stuck as far as what he should do. And you could tell like a couple of the big plays were kind of a result of Williams being in the wrong spot. But Arizona didn't really make as many big plays in the second half. And you still got to remember it's Williams' first, real start as a pro. So, I mean, I think it should
throughout the game. He started. The first 2 drives, Dorian Williams. He started a bit shaky. It was like, okay,
yeah. I mean, he definitely
there's a
picked
few
it up.
tackles where you should have saw. He should have made that. But throughout the game, he looked.
He definitely cleaned
better.
things up by the end of
Oh,
the
yeah.
game. And
He
I
did.
think you could just tell his athleticism. I mean, in the run game, especially against a team like Miami, where they're going to try to establish the run with Mostert and Achane. That's
If
the
they
type
even
of
play.
guy, right? But good point. Well, or Jalen Wright, he's another speedster, right? No pun intended.
Oh my God.
Sorry, that was awful. But Jalen is very, very speedy, and you want a guy like Williams, to get him on those. McDaniels loves to run those pitch plays. So if he does a couple pitch plays to Jalen Wright, I think Williams is a perfect guy to try to snuff it out of the backfield. But yeah, we will get
my
more
only
to.
concern with the
Go ahead, Paul.
injuries, just really quick, is the snap exchange between McGovern and Josh. Like,
That is a very good point.
what is Josh going to wear on his
I
left
will
hand?
say McDermott did say in his press conference, though, I mean, they were able to finish the game without it being a concern. So he didn't. I mean, obviously, the coach will always give you coach speak. But McDermott didn't seem as concerned with it as maybe some fans are. I mean, obviously, coaches never really look concerned to begin with. But we'll get more into that tomorrow because we actually have a special guest coming on for a preview of that game. We'll announce it later on our X account. But real quickly, for some final notes. Spencer Brown obviously got paid. We tweeted about that. We still don't know the contract, but Groot still deserves his contract. Dak Prescott finally got paid. Maybe Micah Parsons will be available now because they can't pay anyone. Another quick note is CMC is out tonight.
Don't remind me
earlier, Connor, but that is big for that
Don't remind me.
49ers still.
And real quickly, I mean, even if the 49ers win or lose, no matter what, to me, week 1, I think the AFC East, and I'll take an L here because I thought, and I've been saying it all offseason, that the AFC North was going to be an absolute buzzsaw. And to me, it might be the most overrated division of football now. But I think no matter what, win or lose for the Jets through week 1, the AFC East established itself as the best division in football, hands down, top to bottom.
Oh, you're really saying that with your chest?
Oh, absolutely.
After week 1 did week 1 things by the Bengals losing?
It did, but you know what?
Patriots
I think a
scary.
lot. Exactly. I think we all kind of wrote, yes, their offense wasn't pretty, but I think we all kind of didn't give New England enough credit for that defense and run game. And that wins football games. And especially when you have a very good defense and a very good run game, that's a good combination to still F around and win 8 to 9 games. Now, they're not going to win 11 or 12, but if you're talking about the 4th team in the division, I don't think there's many divisions that have your 4th team as good as them. And then your top 3 teams should all, in theory, be competing for a division title and a very high playoff spot, potentially multiple teams making the playoffs. Like, I thought this AFC North, And yes, some of it may have been recency bias, some of it may have been the offseason moves, but honestly, it almost feels like the AFC West all over again a couple of years ago. They made all these moves. Ironically, Russell Wilson joined one of those teams in the offseason as a quarterback that same offseason, and he did it this year to one of the AFC North teams. It just feels like all those teams got overhyped. Like they could all win the division. I think only one. I thought a couple of those teams would make the playoffs. Now I really think only one of those teams make the playoffs. Like
Ooh, all
Bengals
right.
doesn't look good.
Cincinnati
Steelers, the
winning
only
the
thing.
division, I don't think they're going anywhere. I think it's gonna come down to Baltimore and Pittsburgh to grind it out for the division, and I'm giving the edge to Baltimore because of better quarterback play.
I still
After what
don't
we
think
saw on
Pittsburgh is that
Thursday,
good.
Their defense, though, can just like kind of like New England, their defense can beat anyone, and they're gonna grind out games like that. I really think the Browns are cooked with Deshaun
I'm not buying the
Watson.
Pittsburgh
I
bias.
think
I'm not buying the Pittsburgh
I
stuff
think
yet. Not just yet.
the Browns and Bengals are both cooked. Pittsburgh is still gonna F around and win 9+ games, and Baltimore they look to
9 at
me.
most.
Well, we'll see. I mean, when is the last time Lamar Jackson beat the Steelers? It's been a while,
never.
right?
I'm not
Exactly.
True.
kidding.
He
Yeah,
can't.
it's
He
it's
can't
been a
beat
while.
Pittsburgh. Not even Kenny Pickett. And I think Baltimore regressed. That offense was all out of sorts the other day. The offensive line looked weak to me. I really wasn't too impressed with the defense overall. I mean, Marlon Humphrey got cooked by Xavier Worthy. So I think that division is open for the taking for Pittsburgh to potentially win it at 10 games because I don't think Baltimore is going to run away with that division. I really don't. I think if
Steelers got a
Baltimore
Super
wins
Bowl.
it, right? No, if Baltimore wins it, 11 games is going to be what they're going to win it at. That
Ooh.
division, totally overhyped. The AFC South, though, still underrated. Now I am kind of starting to lose hope in Will Levis. Now, granted, it was a week 1 game against a Bears defense that was top 10, and he had basically a brand new receiving core, and it was a road game in a tough environment. I mean, if we all remember Josh Allen's second season, he had a rough start against the Jets. Now they were able to pull it out. Now the Titans did lose, but I mean, I'm not going to completely write off Will Levis off of 1 game, but I'm not as impressed with him as I thought I was last year. And honestly, they may have a better chance with Rudolph if they give it over to Rudolph, but the Jags choked epic proportionally, Connor. Like that was terrible. The Colts,
yeah, I know.
I knew that offense was going to be dynamic. The defense is still a work in progress. Honestly, my other takeaway as we wrap up, because Monday Night Football is coming up, how about that Texans? How about that Texans secondary? Barbecue chicken, right? Like
Barbecue
Anthony,
chicken.
it was. And there was multiple other plays for the taking that Anthony Richardson just missed.
Yeah.
Donnie Mitchell deep or whatever. Like Alec Pierce was cooking them. So what is Keon Coleman and Khalil Shakir going to do down in Houston when we go down there? Like, exactly. It's gonna be interesting. Now, I think this was a game
goes for 5 touchdowns.
You know what?
Paul,
hold on.
Right,
we're on the Texan subject, so I do have to say it. Thank you, Stephon Diggs, for basically winning me my fantasy league.
Did we pick this game in our game picks, Paul?
We did.
Yeah, we did.
We did.
I
could tell you that you and Connor's boasting over the KC game, me picking the Ravens, didn't work. It hasn't worked out for you guys because we're all 2-2 entering this game.
Nice.
And we all picked the Niners, right?
We all picked the Niners.
I think
now with CMC out, does anyone want to switch it up real quickly before game time?
No.
49ers still win big.
I agree.
Yeah,
let's go Niners. Win. All right.
Bang bang Niner gang.
Yeah, I think that should be it. We'll be back tomorrow with a very awesome guest. So make sure you tune in tomorrow. It should be 7:30. It should be the start time, Paul.
7:30 is the start time.
Perfect.
Mhm.
All right. Well,
All right.
thank you everyone
And
for tuning in, and go
yep.
Bills.
One last thing
Go
to
Bills.
say, Ryan Fitzgerald, I hope you like Buffalo Blue because you're going to be wearing it soon. Ben, you know who I'm talking about.
Ryan Fitzpatrick too. Shout out to him for what he
Ryan
posted on
Fitzpatrick,
Twitter.
I mean, yeah, Ryan
No, Ryan
Fitzpatrick's who I meant.
Fitzgerald is the kicker. You were right about that.
Oh,
Ryan
God
Fitzpatrick's the
bless. I can't.
quarterback.
They got they got similar names. I was thinking of
Similar
our kicker,
name.
right, at FSU. He's going to be our Tyler Bass replacement if it gets worse. Just saying. He's a great kicker. Deserves to be a Bill.
All right.
But that's the last
All
I'm going to
right.
say.
Niners
Go
final
Bills.
Go
word.
Bills.
Good night.
Go Niners.
Go Bills.
Squish the fish and squish
Squish
the
the
Jets.
fish. Yep.